Welcome to Week 3 Thursday Night Football. I am your host, Bobby Stanley, also known as PropHolliday over on social media, hanging out with the GoldBoys. Yes, we are going to go through my favorite player props for tonight's Thursday Night Football game between the Jets and the Patriots. But first, we got to talk about Bryce Young. Bryce Young has been benched in year 2, week 3, and this is somewhat unprecedented territory, but when you look at how bad he was playing, you kind of see why it's justified. I want to go through a couple different trade opportunities. I want to talk about what's been going on with Bryce Young over the last year and over the last couple weeks. Just first thoughts. I was a big better on Carolina in week 1. I got smoked like most people did against New Orleans. I took them taking the points. I took Chuba Hubbard. I look like an idiot. But I was able to watch a lot of Carolina Panthers. And in that, I can say Bryce Young looked awful. There's no sugarcoating it. He holds on to the ball too long. He can't feel pressure. And now his confidence is completely lost. I think last week he missed like a 3-yard out, and that's unheard of for the first pick overall. I don't really see any elite traits in him, but he was with a program. Obviously, they were extremely talented over there at Alabama. It was either him or Stroud. There's rumors that the head coach, Frank Reich, wanted nothing to do with Bryce Young. He wanted Stroud. The organization forced Bryce Young on him. And here we are today. Let's talk about the Panthers. The weapons, suspect at best. They trade for Deontay Johnson in the offseason. They go out and get Xavier Legette, who I like. Both guys I like. They had Thielen on the roster. You got a Miles Sanders. You got a Chuba Hubbard. Could you make the argument it's probably one of the least talented teams in the league? I'd say, yeah, it probably is. So that's not helping him. I went and looked at just some advanced stats. I went over to PFF. How is Carolina doing in the blocking column? Doesn't help Bryce Young's case at all. So Carolina pass blocking, 5th best grade through 2 weeks. It is 2 weeks. 21st best in run blocking, so they can't run the ball. They scored 13 points over the last 2 games. They were blown out completely in both. Another stat that is not helping Bryce Young at all. He was pressured on 4 of 29 dropbacks in week 2. That was the lowest rate of any quarterback, and yet they're benching him. So I'm trying to think here. What's the plan? If you were to trade Bryce Young, and we saw some outrageous ones thrown out this week, I think Chase Daniels said something about a 3-team trade between the Dolphins, the Rams, and Carolina. Obviously, I am a Rams fan. I laughed at it. They were having Matt Stafford get traded, plus additional picks, so that the Rams could get back Bryce Young and some of the and then it was like the Rams in a third, Stafford in a third for Bryce Young, and then a second goes to Miami, and all of that just seemed completely outrageous. We don't get any 3-team trades in the NFL. I wish we did, like we did the NBA. But anyway, I wanted to come up with my own trades. What would a trade look like for Bryce Young as it currently stands? Side note, I think he's going to end up starting another game before the end of this season. I think they're going to bench him. Obviously they're going to bench him. I think they're going to let him kind of reset and stop the bleeding of whatever this is. And then we'll probably see him in maybe the last few games of the season as a confidence booster for next year. But let's look at some similar trades of first-round picks recently. Trey Lance, 4 starts, appeared in 8 games, completed 56 passes, 797 yards, 5 touchdowns. He rushed for 235 and rushed for 1 TD. He went to Dallas for a 4th-round pick. You could make the argument that you were betting on what you didn't see with Trey Lance versus Bryce Young, where we've seen significantly more than Trey Lance. He was marred with injuries. He goes to Dallas. He's the backup 4th-round pick. Baker Mayfield traded to Carolina from Cleveland, conditional 5th, which would have become a 4th. I think it ended up staying a 5th. That was last year's draft. Sam Darnold was a 6th, a future 2nd, and a 4th. I don't think that kind of compensation will match anyone here. My assumption, it would probably take a 4th if you want to throw conditions on it, maybe throw a player in there. That's what you're looking at. But I would say Bryce Young, probably a 4th-round pick. Shout out Diabetes. What's up, man? Thanks for joining the chat. All right, so I came up with 2 trades that I thought were pretty interesting that could actually work out and make sense for Bryce Young and make sense for the Carolina Panthers. The New York Giants send a 2025 5th-round pick. We could throw some conditions on it. Plus Isaiah Simmons. He was the former first-round pick Clemson linebacker. He was like a linebacker safety hybrid for Bryce Young. If you look at the Giants, they have the worst backup QB situation in the league. They got Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito. Can you bench Daniel Jones and trot out Young if you have something there with Young, if you have something there early on, maybe he can look significantly different than he did. Obviously, Dayball had some success with mobile quarterbacks, but they were significantly bigger in Josh Daniels and Daniel Jones. But if you're onto something, you're not picking in the top 5. You have your quarterback of the future. You pair him with Malik Neighbors. Hey, look, we just got him for a 3rd-round pick. If you don't, you can try to sell it to a new head coach as a reclamation project. But the Giants stand out as someone that would love to get out from under Daniel Jones' contract as soon as humanly possible, and would potentially be a fit. The other one that came to mind, San Francisco 49ers. They have some experience with this. They took on Sam Darnold last year, kind of flipped him around, let him be a backup, learn underneath a QB-friendly system. He goes over to Shanahan's buddy Kevin O'Connell, and he looks like he's completely revitalized career. You can make the same case for Baker Mayfield. What do they have in common? They both played for the Carolina Panthers. So I would say San Fran, a 4th and a 6th, because that 4th probably isn't going to be worth as much than a Giants 4th. Their backups are Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs. Doesn't look great behind Purdy. You can make the case Purdy, similar comp size with Bryce Young. They did have the Sam Darnold piece in-house. You can build his stock up and flip him for assets. So if this season goes to shit, maybe you plug and play Bryce Young for 2-3 games, and I think Shanahan's system can prop him up. And if not, you could just show him out in the preseason, let him go nuts, and then maybe you can move him at the deadline next year. But I think Shanahan would be a dream for any quarterback, specifically this kid. You need to get his confidence back. It's completely gone. So those are my 2 trade ideas. Giants for a 4th and Isaiah Simmons for Young, and then San Fran a 4th and a 6th for Bryce Young. Odds are he's just going to be benched for the next 4 or 5 games. Let Dalton flounder out. They build his confidence back up. He comes in the second half of the season. But it's a shame that you just see it play out this way. Let's talk about tonight's game, the Thursday night football game. We have the New York Jets giving 6.5 points. They're 1-1, back in prime time for the second time in 3 weeks. Rodgers has shown Jets fans a level of offense that has not existed in 3 years. What do I mean by that? According to ESPN Jets reporter Rich Cimini, this is the first time the Jets have thrown multiple touchdown passes in back-to-back games since week 8 and 9 of the 2021 season. That is sad, but that is why you make a move for an Aaron Rodgers. Let's look at the New England Patriots. Get the division rival Patriots in there. They are 1-1, but they're coming off an overtime loss to the Seattle Seahawks last week, looking to bounce back. This Jets defense comparatively is much weaker, statistically, than what New England has seen earlier on. The total set at 38.5. I actually think there's going to be some scoring in this game. This is the easiest defense on paper that the New England Patriots have faced so far this year. The Jets have allowed 49 points through 2 games. The 49ers have allowed 42 and 40, allowing scoring drives on 52% of possessions. The 49ers 38% and Seahawks 30.8%. So allowing more scoring drives, allowing more points, this Jets defense. The Jets hope to take advantage of the Patriots' lack of a pass rush. They're only getting pressure on about 17% of pass attempts. That's the 6th worst. So Rodgers has been cool with dinking and dunking early on, at least in these 2 games, where he gets some experience back into it. But he may be able to take some shots tonight. So guys like Allen Lazard thrive against a man-to-man coverage. Not so much Mike Williams. Allen Lazard does. Garrett Wilson has that tough matchup against Christian Gonzalez, who's locked down Jamar Chase and DK Metcalf through 2 weeks. He's getting a lot of hype, and he deserves it. So maybe it's a Lazard game. We'll talk more later on. A couple stats that stood out to me. Patriots have a top 5 man rate of coverage. Just mentioned that so far. Ranked 10th best man defenses in coverage, in coverage targets. Yards allowed in coverage, 5.3. Yards allowed per coverage snap, 4.3. And yards allowed per reception, 8.9. Fantasy managers waiting on Mike Williams to deliver that may have to wait a little bit longer. Like I said, Lazard and Wilson are the better guys against man coverage, but I don't know about Gonzo. Let's go over to my 2 favorite plays. We're going to start with Ramondre Stevenson, running back for the New England Patriots, over 83.5 rushing and receiving yards. I got this on FanDuel. Last night. I saw it anywhere up to 85.5. I'd still play it at 85.5. The Jets through 2 weeks have had issues defending running backs. CJ Mosley still waiting on a designation from him. He left, I think, the first half of last game, did not come back. He has not been practicing all week. He'll probably be a game time decision unless anyone has heard otherwise. But if CJ Mosley's out, that is big for Ramondre Stevenson in either receiving or rushing category. What else we got? Stevenson, he's the clear-cut RB1. I know Antonio Gibson's there. If you look at the snap share, Ramondre locked 78% of snaps in week 1, 72% of snaps in week 2. He has the second most touches per game through 2 weeks to only Saquon Barkley. They're really riding him into the ground. He's averaging 25 and a half touches per game. His ceiling was 28. His floor has been 23. I think this number is just too low, and we've seen running backs really go nuts on the Jets. So over 83 and a half rushing and receiving yards. Also on the ground, Jets allowing 4.7 yards per rush to opposing teams. This is a one-unit play for me. I'd play it up to 85 and a half, but I like Ramondre Stevenson. This year, the receiving aspect has not really been there. Last season, if you take a look, him against the Jets, he's really filled up the receiving column. So I love getting the add on here. No, it hasn't happened yet receiving-wise this season, but I do think 83 and a half rushing receiving is a good line. Play it up to 85 and a half for one unit. Before we go into my next play, let's talk about our guys from Bet365. With Bet365, you can choose your own sign-up bonus. Either enjoy a safety net bet on your first bet up to $1,000 or bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. The choice is yours. Head to the link in the description, probably below me, to get started today. You must be 21 plus, 18 plus in Kentucky. You got a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. If it was me choosing between those, I would probably have the first bet up to 1,000 as my safety bet. Get that back in site credit. Save those for major hedge situations. You're down to your last leg of your parlay. I would run over to Bet365, sign up immediately, throw the $1,000 on the hedge the other way, and guarantee yourself some money. But a lot of us have already signed up for every book imaginable. But if not with Bet365, you have that option still. Let's talk about the ladder for tonight. And we are full on coach speak in the prop shop. I'm backing Demario Douglas, wide receiver for the New England Patriots. 2 Patriots props. Over 2.5 receptions. I got it at -110. That was for 1 unit. Going to 4+ receptions, plus 265 for half a unit. 5+ receptions for plus 600. Brought that down to a third of a unit. And then 6+ receptions, plus 1,100 for a quarter of a unit. I am fully invested for about 2 units. I'm all in on this as a 2-unit play, the ladder all the way up from over 2.5 to 6+. Let's talk about why. He's getting open on nearly 70% of his routes. The problem is Jacoby Brissett's just not seeing him. He finally cried at the end of week 2. You saw it in the post-game press conference, and he was justified. It was a week 2 loss. It was a tough loss. So when you go to the locker room after that, you see a guy like Demario Douglas who's wide open. He's getting separation on 70% of his routes, 69. And Brissett had to acknowledge that in a post-game presser. And they said, well, what do you think about Demario Douglas? Pretty much saying, he's like, I heard him. I'm the quarterback. It's my job to hear him. We're going to work on that. You go over to Gerard Mayo. He acknowledged the same thing. We're going to try to get him involved. We need to get him more involved. He's a small speedster. He's an explosive guy. The way I see this is if they're looking to get him involved, expect screens, slants, early. I'm talking first quarter. If we can get a floor of 2 receptions right out of the gate just from the coach speak, and that's something that Brissett can get in his head. Okay, this is a guy I can rely on. I know where he is. His route is X route within this tree. That we built our two reception floor, just them force feeding him early because it's justified. They need those type of playmakers. Polk is a rookie. Say what you want about Tyquan Thornton, but I would bet that I am betting that he is going to have a role in this offense tonight. It gets Brissett easy completions. It gives Stevenson some breathing room if you can stretch the defense a little bit. I would say I can see him getting the plays drawn up early, get an easy 1 to 2 receptions. If that goes well, maybe we'll get some more later in the game. If this game gets ugly, it's almost a touch. We're at 6.5. We're at the touchdown spread. That is a perfect opportunity for dink and dunk underneath where the Jets sit and prevent and will chew up those receptions. So if the game script goes negative, I think this works out. If it's a competitive game and we get those 2 receptions early, we just need 1 more. We hit our 1-unit play. If we lose the rest, we break even. So I love the ladder situation here. He finished last season 5 targets in 5 straight games. I do think it's a buy low spot. A lot of sharp people that I'm friends with in gambling Twitter, they seem to be on this too. So we're riding Demario Douglas. 3+ receptions all the way to 6. Bring that unit size down for Douglas of the New England Patriots. Let's talk touchdowns. My touchdown liquor cabinet. We got the top shelf, the mid shelf, and the well vodka. Top shelf, we actually got a decent one tonight, but I'm not going a full unit on the top shelf here. Ramondre Stevenson, I got him plus 130 over on Bet365. I want to say about 4 or 5 hours ago. I think it's still plus 125. It's the volume here, guys. His floor is 23 touches, whether that be receiving or rushing. He's going to see 23 touches tonight. And I'm getting plus 130 for the workhorse of this offense. The total's at 38.5. I actually think there's going to be some points scored in this game. I went half a unit on Stevenson as my top shelf. Getting an RB1 at plus 130 feels pretty good. Let's go to that mid shelf. A couple different directions I could have went here. Allen Lazard was definitely one. He's gotten red zone targets in the first and second week, but his odds have dropped significantly since week 1. I looked over at Mike Williams, and Mike Williams, I went a quarter of a unit at plus 330. You can still get plus 330 no matter the book. I think it's FanDuel, DraftKings, Bet365. You're in that range. You'll get more than 3-1 on Mike Williams. Snap count jumped dramatically from week 1 to week 2. He ran 4 routes in week 1. He ran 23 routes in week 2. That was good for about 66% of snaps. So snap count jumped, routes run jumped. Like I said, it's decent odds for a guy who's 70% of the time on the field. He's a good jump ball target. That's kind of what his specialty is. Maybe he'll get a crack at it in the red zone. Maybe he takes the top off the defense because they're not getting pressure on quarterbacks, this New England defense. Is this a chance for Mike Williams to finally have that big explosive play they brought him in for? Plus 330, 70% of the snaps, and you got Gonzo guarding Garrett Wilson on the other side. It may be a good opportunity. The man coverage favors Lazard. The odds and the snap count favor Mike Williams. My mid shelf is Mike Williams at plus 330, quarter of a unit. And well vodka this week. My boy Ruck, if you buck. Jeremy Ruckert, backup tight end for the New York Jets. It's plus 1,000, 10-1. Put pennies on this. If you got a bonus bet, if you got a no sweat bet, Jeremy Ruckert plus 1,000. He got his first red zone target last week. It did not result in anything. He ran 7 routes in the first game, 7 routes in the second game. For me, this is strictly a red zone opportunity only, but I do think this is going to be a little bit higher scoring. Maybe we get to that 42. Maybe we see a 24-17 type game instead of this 38.5. So I like Ruckert at 10-1 at my well vodka. Well vodka gets well vodka prices. No sweat bets, pennies, but it's 10-1, and I think he gets maybe one look. Let's see if he gets another red zone look. I know Aaron Rodgers had some nice things to say about him in camp, and now he's finally getting out there. So Ruckert 10-1. We got Jake Hallen, my boy Jake Williams, plus 450 on ESPN. Played 66% of snaps last game. I think that's going to go up, not drastically, but him getting 70%. There's no pass rush for New England. This may finally be that jump ball opportunity for Mike Williams to get in the end zone, and it's on prime time. Plus 450. I played it at plus 330. Jake, thank you for shouting that out. And then Ramondre, if you can get it over plus 120, I would go for a half a unit. The snaps, the volume, everything's going to be there, barring a blowout, but it's a 38.5 point total. How much of a blowout can it be? That is it. We got Ramondre Stevenson over 83.5 rushing plus receiving yards for 1 unit. Demario Douglas, the full receptions ladder, over 2.5 all the way to 6+. I'm at Bet365, but you can still see the alt lines over on DraftKings and FanDuel, but the odds have decreased significantly since last night, since I gave it out in the Discord. But Demario Douglas is a good look. Ramondre Stevenson is a good look, and we got 3 touchdown scores. Let's win some money tonight, guys. I will see you all Sunday, 5:30 Eastern time. We're going to be talking about Sunday Night Football. Adios.